A 1.8 million year old skull has the science world all excited. That's because it might rewrite an early chapter in human evolution. Scientists have spent 8 years studying this fossil. It's the only complete skull from a hominin species from that time period, making it a big find for researchers. But the skull, nicknamed Skull 5, wasn't found alone. There were at least 4 other skulls at the site in Dmanisi, Georgia, and the individuals are thought to have died within a few hundred years of one another. When the researchers compared the specimens, they found a lot of variation in the shapes of the skulls, variation that might have led scientists to believe they found separate species if the fossils hadn't all been found in one place. The lead researcher says since we see a similar pattern and range of variation in the African fossil record, it is sensible to assume that there was a single Homo species at that time in Africa. Catch that? He's saying that when scientists found skulls from what they thought were different species, like Homo ergaster, Homo rudolfensis, and Homo habilis, they were actually looking at members of one species, Homo erectus.
Professor Rebecca Kahn was the pioneering scientist who uncovered the first all-important clue.
I started working on human mitochondrial DNA so that I would have some kind of view that was objective, that would help me understand and help other people understand how humans around the world were related. I was very excited when I first started to get evidence, and it was so counterintuitive. I'd put 20 Europeans and 20 African Americans on a sheet of X-ray film, and every African American showed differences, and all the Europeans looked the same. And I thought I'd mislabeled something, or I thought I'd made some drastic mistake. And we kept repeating and repeating things, and as we got more samples from different areas, I realized that it was a difference in the pattern, and that this whole new type of evidence based on mitochondria was going to change the way we thought about modern humans. The responses of people were sort of amazing. The public was genuinely interested in certain aspects of it, but there was a tendency to misinterpret the data because of the terminology used to describe this woman, African Eve. And people thought it meant the biblical Eve, the single woman in the Judeo-Christian Bible of the wife of Adam. I have to say, even my own uncle sent me a Christmas card the year that our study was published saying, "How dare you, you know Grandma wasn't black."
In 1987, Kahn and her colleagues published a paper showing for the first time that the markers stretched back to Africa, showing quite clearly that this was the birthplace of the human race. New Guinean tribesman, Parisian bartender, American teacher, Polynesian farmer, all were improbable relatives linked through one black woman 150,000 years ago.
Flash forward to the early 90s. I was lucky enough to be one of a chosen few working with Luca at Stanford University in California.
They say this is where it
There was a
all
scientific
began.
revolution in full swing, and the buzzword was genetics.
That we are
While
all
everyone else was
children
talking
of
about the
Africa.
future, we were looking backwards into the past. Blood was the time machine, and we were time travelers. Soon, we were taking Luca's work onto a new level. 10 years on, and we're ready to rewrite history.
a replica of a skull from Nigeria, and it was dug up in 1965 by Thurston Shaw and his team, an archaeologist. It is about 13,000 years old. And my colleague Katerina Hrvati used a new technique of digitizing the surface of the skull in 1972. And she found, as I did, that it does not look recent African material. So here we've got a recent African skull, and here's the skull from Iwo Eleru in Nigeria. You can see that this skull is much longer, it's much lower. And all in all, it's got a much more what we could call primitive appearance, even though it's only 13,000 years old. And in Katerina's analyses, she found that the nearest neighbour in terms of the overall shape of the skull was this specimen from Tanzania, from a site called Ngaloba, which is, we think, about 140,000 years old. So you've got a specimen 13,000 years old, but it looks like it should be, you know, another 100,000 years older in terms of its shape.
So what's going on?
So this suggests that human evolution in Africa was more complex, that the transition to modern humans was not a straight kind of transition and then a cut-off. The archaic humans did not necessarily die away once they'd given rise to modern humans. They may have been living in some parts of Africa alongside, in a sense, their descendants, and perhaps exchanging genes with them. Just as Neanderthals seem to have interbred with people outside of Africa, archaic humans in Africa could have been interbreeding with modern humans inside of Africa, and this skull may show a reflection of that interbreeding.